The sun did not rise gently over the New Mexico territory in the summer of 1878. It climbed into the sky like a punishment. By noon, the land around Broken Creek Ranch looked baked and brittle. The earth split open in long, jagged cracks, as if it had tried to scream and dried out before the sound came. Ezra Holt stood alone by the south fence line, hat pulled low, watching the dust curl across the valley floor. At 42, he carried himself like a man who had learned not to bend. Tall, broad-shouldered, hands rough enough to split cedar without flinching. His blue eyes were the only soft thing about him, but even they had hardened after 3 years of widowhood. Since Clara died, the ranch had grown quiet in a way that pressed against his ribs. No laughter from the porch, no light in the kitchen after dusk. Just wind and cattle and the steady grind of survival. But today, the quiet felt wrong. He had ridden the perimeter before dawn and found the north gate hanging open. Not broken, not rotted. Cut clean through. By mid-morning, 50 head of cattle were missing. Ezra had not cursed. He had not shouted. He had simply stared at the clean slice in the chain, memorizing it. Men did not cut chains by accident. Back at the yard, Pike, his foreman, was waiting with 3 hands clustered behind him. Pike was thick around the middle, beard like steel wool, temper just as sharp. "It's Crow," Pike said flatly. "Has to be. Silas Crow wants the water rights. He's been sniffing around since spring." Ezra did not answer right away. He kept staring toward the ridgeline. Heat shimmer made the horizon wobble, but he knew what he was looking for. For movement. And there it was. 2 riders, small against the skyline, watching. "They want us scared," Ezra said quietly. "We should be," Pike snapped. "We're down men, feed's thin, and if Crow squeezes us in court next month, we're finished." Ezra finally turned. His face showed nothing. "Then we won't be finished," he said. That was when the wagon appeared on the southern road. It came slow. 1 horse, dust trailing behind like a tired sigh. Ezra narrowed his eyes. No one came to Broken Creek by accident. As the wagon rolled closer, he saw her, a woman driving alone. Pike spat into the dirt. "You don't want that kind of trouble," he muttered. Ezra didn't look at him. He was too busy staring. The wagon stopped 10 feet from the gate. The horse was lean but strong. The woman stepped down without waiting for help. She was not dressed like a town lady. No lace, no ribbon, just a wide brim hat, a man's worn work shirt, and a long dark skirt patched at the hem. Her boots were cracked but steady. She moved like someone who knew exactly how much space she took up and refused to shrink for anyone. She walked up to the gate and stopped. "My name is Lucia Reyes," she said. Her voice was dry but clear. "I'm looking for work." Pike laughed. "We don't need cooks." "I'm not a cook." Ezra stepped forward, resting his hands on the fence rail. He studied her face, Mexican-American, around 30, skin like polished leather, black eyes that did not flinch. "What kind of work?" Ezra asked. "I train horses," she said. "I break what other men give up on." A few of the ranch hands chuckled behind him. Ezra did not. He kept staring, so there was something in her posture. Not fear, not pride. Something guarded, like a gate bolted from the inside. "Where you come from?" he asked. "South." "Why leave?" She hesitated, just for a second. The wind shifted, catching the collar of her shirt. The fabric moved enough to reveal a line of scar tissue along her collarbone. Thick, raised, ugly. Ezra stared. He didn't mean to. But he did. It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't disgust. It was recognition. He had seen scars like that before. War left them. Whips left them. Lucia's hand flew up, pulling the shirt closed tight. "Don't look there," she said. The words weren't soft. They weren't ashamed. They were a warning. Pike snorted. "What kind of mess are you bringing onto my land, Holt?" Ezra didn't answer him. He was still staring. Not at the scar now. At her eyes. But there was fury there. But not the kind that begged. The kind that survived. Something in Ezra shifted. He opened the gate. "Bring the horse inside," he said. Pike straightened. "Ezra." "She'll try the sorrel," Ezra continued calmly. "If she lasts longer than you did, she stays." The yard went quiet. Lucia stepped through the gate without a thank you. She didn't smile, didn't bow her head. She led her horse to the trough, letting the animal drink first before taking water for herself. Ezra watched her every movement. Pike leaned close. "You don't know what she is." Ezra's jaw tightened. "I know exactly what she is," he said. "What's that?" "She's someone Crow won't expect." Pike stared at him. "You're going to start a war over a stray?" Ezra looked toward the ridge again, where the distant riders had not moved. "Yeah, they already started one," he said quietly. Behind them, Lucia finished watering her horse and walked toward the corral. The men gathered along the fence, waiting to see her fail. Ezra stayed where he was, staring. And in that moment, without raising his voice or lifting a fist, he made a choice that would enrage the town, anger Silas Crow, and drag Broken Creek Ranch straight into the fire. He chose not to look away. The sorrel gelding was already sweating before Lucia ever stepped into the pen. The horse had thrown Pike twice and nearly crushed Toby against the rail. It had a mean streak in it, the kind that made men swear and reach for rope instead of patience. The ranch hands leaned along the fence, grinning, waiting for the show. Ezra stood with his arms crossed, silent. Lucia didn't rush, but she walked into the dust like it belonged to her. No rope swinging, no shouting. She kept her eyes low, her movements slow. The sorrel snorted, ears pinned, hindquarters turning toward her in warning. She stopped and waited. The men started laughing. "She's scared already," Pike muttered. Ezra didn't laugh. He kept staring. Lucia hummed, low and steady, a sound barely louder than wind through sagebrush. She stepped sideways in a soft arc, closing the distance inch by inch. The horse shifted. Not calmer. Confused. It expected force. It didn't know what to do with quiet. 20 minutes passed before her hand ever touched its neck. When it did, the gelding shuddered like lightning had run through it. Lucia didn't pull away. She pressed her palm flat and heavy, grounding it. "Easy," she murmured. "I know." And then, with one fluid motion, she slipped onto its back bareback. The horse exploded. Dust burst into the air as it bucked and twisted, hooves striking hard enough to shake the rails. The men roared, waiting for her to fly. She didn't. She moved with it. Not fighting, not punishing. Just riding the storm. 5 minutes later, the sorrel stood still in the center of the pen, sides heaving, head lowered. Lucia slid off. The yard was silent. Ezra felt something in his chest loosen for the first time in months. Pike spat. "Witch trick." Ezra stepped forward. "That's enough," he said. Pike's mouth twisted. "You going to put her in charge next?" Ezra didn't hesitate. "Yes." The word hit the yard like a rifle crack. The men looked at each other. "You heard me," Ezra continued. "From now on, She manages the horse line. If I'm not here, you answer to her. Pike's face darkened. She ain't white, and she ain't a man. Ezra stepped closer, voice low but deadly calm. She's better than you. That was the moment the anger began to spread beyond the ranch. By evening, the story had already reached town. At the Mercantile, Mr. Gable leaned over his counter whispering. At the saloon, Crow's men laughed into their whiskey glasses. Ezra Holt's gone soft, one said. No, another corrected. He's gone stupid. Silas Crow heard the news before sunset. He sat behind his polished desk in Agot Creek, coat tailored, boots spotless. He did not raise his voice. He simply listened. He made her forewoman, Stark reported, said her words equal to his. Crow smiled. Equal, he repeated softly. In public? Yes, sir. Crow stood and walked to the window overlooking town. Good, he said. Stark frowned. Good. He just showed me his weakness. Back at the ranch, Lucia worked late, moving through the stable with quiet purpose. Ezra watched from the porch. He wasn't staring at her scars now. He was staring at how the horses responded to her, how Dutch nodded when she gave direction, how Toby followed without complaint. Pike didn't. He packed his saddle that night. You're going to regret this, Pike said, throwing his bedroll over his shoulder. Crow pays double, and when he comes for this place, you'll wish you had listened. Ezra didn't argue. He simply said, Ride safe. Pike rode straight to Crow before dawn. 3 days later, the retaliation began. First, the North Water pipe was smashed. Then, a calf was found shot near the dry wash. And on Sunday morning, but when Lucia rode into town for supplies, the whispering wasn't quiet anymore. Deputy Vance stepped into her path outside the freight office. Heard you got promoted, he said loudly. She didn't stop walking. He grabbed her arm. Not so fast. A crowd gathered, men with nothing better to do, women pretending not to look. We got a report of theft, Vance announced. Silver watch missing from Gable's store. Lucia met his eyes. I haven't been near his store. Funny how it always seems to be your kind. The box in her hands was knocked into the dirt. A bottle shattered. Laughter broke out. Vance twisted her arm behind her back. You're coming with me. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She walked. They locked her in the single iron cell in town, left the outer door open so everyone could stare. 3 hours passed, and then came the sound of a horse at full gallop. Ezra rode into town like a storm breaking loose. He didn't tie his horse, didn't slow down. He kicked open the jail door. Unlock it, he said. Vance smirked. Bail's 50. Ezra dropped a leather pouch on the desk. Count it. Coins spilled across the wood, gold and silver flashing in the dim light. The key shook in Vance's hand as he opened the cell. Lucia stepped out without looking at him. Outside, a man named Stark laughed from the saloon steps. That's a lot of money for a bed warmer, Holt. The street went silent. Ezra handed Lucia his reins. Hold this. Then he walked toward Stark. Stark reached for his knife. Ezra's fist hit first. The crack of bone carried across the street. Stark fell into the dirt, blood pouring from his nose. Ezra stood over him, breathing hard. Anyone else? He asked. No one moved. He mounted up behind Lucia and rode out without another word. That night, as they sat on the porch under a sky thick with stars, Lucia cleaned the blood from his knuckles. You made it worse, she whispered. Ezra looked out toward the dark ridge where riders watched. It was already worse, he said. In the distance, on the limestone mesa, 2 silhouettes sat on horseback, One lowered a spyglass. "Hull's not backing down," the rider said. Silas Crow took the glass and looked for himself. He watched the rancher and the woman on the porch. He saw the way Ezra kept looking at her. Not like property, like something worth fighting for. Crow's smile faded. "Burn the feed barn," he said quietly. "And this time, make sure he understands." "Wait. Before we move on, what do you think about the story so far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to know." The fire came 2 nights later. Ezra woke before he heard it. It was the smell that reached him first. Thick, oily, wrong. He was out of bed before his boots were fully on. When he stepped onto the porch, the sky was already orange. The hay barn was roaring. Flames climbed the walls like they had been waiting for permission. The heat struck his face from 50 yards away. It wasn't just a fire. It was a message. "Lucia!" he shouted. She was already running from the tack room, hair loose, boots half-laced, rifle in one hand. "The horses!" she yelled. They didn't waste words. Ezra tore open the stable doors while Lucia grabbed halters. The animals inside were screaming, eyes wild, its hooves slamming against wood. Dutch and Toby burst from the bunkhouse, shirts half-buttoned. "Move!" Ezra roared. They worked without panic, without confusion, just speed. Lucia moved straight to the bay mare that always panicked first. Smoke thickened around her. Embers fell into her hair. "Easy," she whispered, pressing her forehead against the horse's neck. The mare stilled. Ezra saw it. Even in the middle of fire, she calmed chaos. They drove the horses into the south corral, just as the barn roof collapsed inward with a sound like the earth splitting. By dawn, the fire was ash. $500 worth of winter feed gone. Ezra stood in the yard, soot streaking his face. His shoulders looked heavier than they had ever been. Lucia walked up beside him. "It was Crow," she said. Ezra didn't answer, and he just stared at the ruins. For a moment she saw it. The crack in him. Not anger. Exhaustion. "I can leave," she said quietly. "If I go, this stops." He turned slowly. The words hit harder than the fire. "You think this is about you being here?" he asked. "It is," she said. "He wants you to choose." Ezra stepped closer. "I already did." Before she could respond, Dutch came running from the road. "They smashed the North Corral," he panted, "and they left something." Nailed to the ranch house door was a dead coyote. Carved deep into the wood beneath it were 3 words: the land or the woman. Choose. Lucia read it without blinking. Ezra ripped the carcass down and threw it into the dirt. He didn't look at the words long. He didn't need to. By noon, riders appeared on the ridge, not hiding. Crow's regulators. But they rode straight through the gate. Stark led them, nose crooked from where Ezra had broken it. "You got till sunset," Stark said. "Send her off and sign the water rights over, or we take both." Lucia stepped forward before Ezra could speak. "I'm not leaving." Stark laughed. "You don't get a vote." Ezra moved to stand beside her. "She does." The men dismounted. Hands drifted toward guns. It wasn't a gunfight yet. It was worse. It was waiting. From the bunkhouse, Dutch and Toby stepped out with Winchesters leveled. From the ridge behind the ranch, 3 prospectors appeared with shotguns. Lucia had rung her brass cattle bell earlier that morning. Favors returned. Stark saw the numbers. His grin faded. "You're outmatched," he warned. "Maybe," Ezra said calmly, "but not outnumbered." The standoff stretched. His wind dragged dust between them. Then, from the road, another rider approached at full gallop. Deputy Vance. He pulled up hard. "Crow's under arrest!" he shouted. Stark blinked. "What?" "Judge signed it. Arson. Coercion. Fraud." Behind Vance rode 2 county deputies from Silverton. Real ones, not Crow's men. Stark looked toward town like he expected Crow to appear and fix it. He didn't. The regulators mounted up slowly. "This ain't finished," Stark muttered. Ezra didn't respond. He just watched them ride out. When the dust finally settled, the ranch yard felt strangely quiet. Not peaceful, just empty. Lucia exhaled. "It's over?" she asked. Ezra shook his head. "It's changed." By late afternoon, word reached them that Crow had been taken in chains to Silverton. The town had turned. Not from kindness, yet from fear shifting direction. That evening, Ezra stood on the porch with a folded document in his hand. Lucia joined him. He held it out. "What's that?" she asked. "Half," he said. She frowned. "Half the ranch," he clarified. "Filed in Silverton this morning." She stared at him. "You're giving me land?" "I'm giving you what's already yours." Lucia didn't reach for it immediately. "You don't owe me," she said. "I'm not paying you," he replied. "I'm standing with you." The wind softened. The mesa turned purple in the fading light. She finally took the paper. Her name was written there. Lucia Reyes, owner. Her throat tightened. "No one can ever put you off this land again," Ezra said quietly. "Not Crow, not the town, not me." For the first time since she had stepped through his gate, Lucia let her guard fall completely. She stepped closer. "You kept staring," she said softly, "even when I told you not to." Ezra smiled faintly. "I wasn't staring at your scars." "What were you staring at?" "You." The word settled between them. Simple. True. She touched his chest lightly. "And what are you going to do about it, rancher?" Ezra took her hand. "Build fences," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "And?" "Plant feed." "And?" He leaned down slowly. "And marry you in the daylight, in front of everyone who thought we wouldn't last." This time when he kissed her, it wasn't desperate. It wasn't defiant. It was steady. Behind them, Broken Creek Ranch stood battered but upright. The barn would be rebuilt. The herd would grow again. The town would whisper, "Let them." As dawn broke, 2 mornings later, Ezra and Lucia rode the southern boundary side by side. The valley stretched wide before them. Not easy, not safe. But theirs. Lucia looked over at him. "What are you staring at now?" Ezra kept his eyes on the horizon. "Everything," he said. And this time, no one dared tell him to look away.